Hi, my name is Maren Richter and this is Klaus Schaffler. We guide you through an exhibition today with the title Debatable Lands, and unfortunately is currently closed due to COVID restrictions and lockdown in Austria. We are in an exhibition. Unfortunately, only 50% of our collaborators are here, an exhibition we work together with Margarita Poulet and Greta Muscat-Azzopardi. And it's part of a long-term project of Grammar of Urgencies, which thinks of how our territories shaped today, what kind of interests form territories, land and spaces. For example, what is safe space? What makes a land commodified or makes it possible to be commodified? So this exhibition, Debatable Lands, is looking closer into the Mediterranean region by using the island nation Malta as a case study. The Mediterranean, as you know, has a very stormy history of occupation, of colonization, and Malta was in the middle of it. What you see in this exhibition is actually our very first chapter, or what one could say it's actually our desk. Our desk where we collect different materials like academic texts, news, images, how we try to understand how this nation state and the Mediterranean are being conceptualized. We have the phenomenon of islands, and this is actually what the exhibition tries to follow in the way how we designed it. As Klaus likes to mention, Klaus, hi, he's
Hello.
Filming. As Klaus likes to mention, this is like a boiling island of debates, of concepts, what an island is about, who regulates, who rules, who conquers, who has the right to talk about a certain space, about the island, about a region like the Mediterranean. But let me start now with the artists who we invited. Altogether, it's 9 artists who basically are from Malta or used to work in Malta. Let's start with Jimmy Grima. He is actually a performance artist, and this is a performance piece, and he made an installation on man-made earthquakes. It's an audio piece in the center with a lot of additional information. And let me continue with an artwork which was produced by an artist from Cameroon in the year 2010. It's called Next Week. Guy went to different places and spaces, transitional spaces, namely detention centers, open centers, and obviously the sea. He's dealing with what it means to come to Malta, to the Mediterranean, or going through a traumatic situation and arriving on an island and trying to get refugee status. The next work is more recent by Tobias Ziloni, a German artist who works actually or tries to expand the idea of documentary. In this case, it's a piece about certain phenomena like offshore businesses in the Mediterranean, like what it means to be outside the territorial waters. He expands the idea and the space of the island into the illegal part of definition of land. And he uses fictional and investigative journalism elements to narrate the story.
The sound is not hearable now
Oh.
because of Maren talking.
Oh, yes, of course. Obviously, we turned down the sound. We turned on the lights because we want you to see. So it's not as the exhibition should be. Besides, as you realized, we're improvising today. It's far from a professional video which we produce, but we still want to show it to you. Bettina Hucek used to live in Malta for quite a long time. Similar to Tobias Ziloni, she uses fictional elements and reality elements. In this case, she found this amazing documentary about the Knights of St. John, which was subtitled through caption software, automatic generating caption software. And as you can read, with completely new and quite bizarre narrative. She made screenshots out of that and produced what she calls an e-book. The next work is a poem, actually part of the poem, Map of the Mediterranean, by a young poet and activist, Antoine Cassar, who basically tries to understand the Mediterranean from various aspects. He uses maps. He tries to understand the history. He tries to understand the islandness of Malta, so to speak. And this is a bit what we also try to understand in our next steps of our project. Sorry. What it means, you know, to talk about islandness, islandtopia, as we call it, islandomania, you know, which refers to tourism. So all these different aspects, you know, about the islandness. Klaus is already filming a piece by a Ukrainian artist, Leta Storin. She is based in Malta. And like Tobias Ziloni, she is fascinated about this phenomenon of offshore and internet and algorithms. Sorry, I always, I don't know, this word is quite difficult. By researching the phenomenon of offshore companies, you know, which obviously do not exist, but there is one street in Valletta, the capital of Malta, which is full of companies like that. She guides us through that. I quickly want to show you, but very quickly because it's more important to talk about the artworks, obviously. But this is our library, which we are quite proud of because we researched this phenomenon of islands, you know, which has all different kind of connotations. On the one hand, as we know, the paradise if it comes to tourism. On the other hand, historically speaking, we had a lot of prison islands. We had a lot of islands which are quite spooky, so there's a lot of horror literature. We have Superwoman who is based on an island, so this tropical understanding of island. And this is in a way one of our layers which we try to understand and deconstruct and reread in our project Debatable Lands. Keith Bonici is an artist from a young generation who are actually quite spontaneous with certain activity, like reacting to certain problems he thinks do exist. In this case, it was during the big debates in the last months about the colonial monuments. And Malta has obviously a quite long and quite stormy colonial history. So there was this very brief debate on whether Queen Victoria monument should remain or should be removed. So Keith wanted to write, or he did write, obviously, to Queen Elizabeth, asking her how she would feel about this whole debate, and he joined her to participate. She never answered, unfortunately. The next work is a film by Charlie Kauki. She's a filmmaker from Malta, and she did a project for a couple of years. Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, you know, we're improvising, obviously. And which focused on the Maltese diaspora, which is actually quite big. A lot of Maltese had to leave the country, especially in the beginning of 20th century, due to a very poor economic situation in Malta. But interestingly enough, in the beginning of the 20th century, they would not go to the US or to Canada, the typical emigration countries, but to Tunisia, to Morocco, to Egypt. So this is a film about trying to find the remains of the Maltese diaspora. And sorry, we walk through. This is very rude, but that's how it is. And the second last work is by Charlene Gallia, a young artist who obviously is already a digital native, and she uses the phenomenon of Instagram and pop culture in general and media to think about the female body, its representation, and its narratives, but also how young women present themselves. This is part of a series called Island Girls, and she invites other women to choose spaces and stage themselves. And those spaces are obviously not the Paradise Island, but rather dystopian. And we have arrived at the last project. This project is actually a community-based archive by Magnus Min Foundation. And it has started around 2018 by feeling there is a lack of something, which is actually the history of the Maltese people. In the history books, you would rather read about the colonial history of the British, of the Knights of St. John. So this archive aims to narrate the stories, the everyday stories about the transition from a colony to a democracy, for example, about the economy during this transitional time, and so on and so forth. So obviously a growing project, and we're very happy to have some of these images in the exhibition. Yes, well, we're done. Klaus, you were quiet.
But present.
But present. Thanks so much for listening, and hope to see you in December when we are again in a reopened stage.
Thanks for joining us.